I got up here, Mike got out of his car, he was looking. But we were just a few steps away.
That's funny. I had my eyes, so I was like, okay, there's something ain't right. It's just my mental health background. I'm like, this doesn't look right.
The light for woman, you're just hanging out the window waving at down. I'm from the window. He gets actually in through the house.
And you're right.
Mr. 90. He tells him exactly. Like, where he found a apartment. You're welcome.
That's all she drinks.
And he said from the safe behind that big picture, donation 6525.
I think we're ready when you are.
Back door open.
didn't even have to order.
But Diane thought she was gonna get out of this because she had to cancel a couple of months ago, so that just gave her a couple of more months to get more stuff together.
And you would think I would have used that time. But you didn't? I didn't.
Oh, no.
I did it. I tried to get my thoughts together. I talked to, was it Tara or somebody Wednesday night? I said, I've got to.
Yeah, I may have to put her in timeout. Put her girls' class. Diane.
I haven't been in time out in a long time.
Thank you, Diane, for doing this.
Oh, dear Nancy. I hope you won't be sorry. Okay, are we ready? Okay. Woo. Loud.
No, it's not loud enough.
I've got a lot of good storytellers in my family and good writers, and I am not one. So y'all just gonna have to be gentle with me tonight. I'm trying to think if that's where I want that to be. If I'm not right here. Maybe I'll put it right here. Okay. I felt like the preacher just did a preamble for me tonight because he talked about ancestry and, well, he talked about inheritance. That doesn't necessarily apply to me because my poor children are not going to get one, but the ancestry and everything is really dear to my heart. So I'm just going to talk a little bit. I'm going to go way back because I'm going to talk a lot about my life and how it applies to the church, or how the church has affected my life. So, my daddy was and is and forever will be Buey B.B. Johnson. He was one of 5 sons and 1 daughter, and his parents were William Butler and Clara Roberts Johnson. And he was born in a Kansas community on November the 26th, 1905. That was 120 years ago. It's a long time. My mother was Mildred Stiles Johnson, and she was one of 7 daughters and 1 son born to Aaron Gordon and Sarah Fanny Horsley Stiles. And again, that was in the High Point community, which is there, Tara, and Kansas. And she was born on February 4th, 1909. She was 4 years younger than Daddy. So, like I said, I just have to tell a little of their history because their history is my history.
History of Antioch, too.
Yeah, it is. They were married on November the 8th, 1925, and after just a few months of living with Daddy's parents, they decided they might want to try to move out, and they, I don't think it took them long to decide that. So they were going to make the big move from Kansas community to Buncombe, and my Papa Johnson had property here, so they bought 50 acres of land from him, and the deal was no interest and pay as you can. And so with the help of his 4 brothers and Papa, they started clearing and prepping to build a 3-room house and a barn. And Mother was always quick to tell me the barn was finished first. I guess that was a necessity in those days because of the animals and stuff. And they moved in to an almost finished house in spring of 1926. Okay, now in this community there were 2 tiny 1-room school buildings somewhere. And the county decided they needed to consolidate and make a more central location and a bigger school. So they came to Daddy and he let them use, and I say use because I know they didn't buy it, so maybe they leased it right over there on this hill on Shallow Church Road. They built a 3-room building, and school started there the next fall. Okay, then that next spring, this was 1927, Uncle Pete, where's Nancy? I think was one of the main instigators. And a group of Baptist believers around here decided Buncombe needs a church. And so on April 26, 1927, a group of members from Kansas Missionary Baptist Church down the road, 3 miles, that's our mother church, brought their letters and met in the new school building and organized Antioch Missionary Baptist Church. It was April 26, 1927. Mm-hmm. That was 99 years ago today. So some of the people that that I can think of right offhand that brought their letters were Nancy's grandparents, Tony's grandparents, he's not here,
Nancy's grandparents, which ones?
her Johnson grandparents, Jerry's grandparents, the Wheelers, the Robinson family, which is Tony and Jessica. Those were just the ones that I thought might be here that I could remember. And all my grandparents, both sets of my grandparents and my parents were in that initial gathering of believers, and they formed the core, the kernel, you know, the nucleus, the foundation, the charter members. And my
Which
papa's,
Robinsons was it, Diane?
huh?
Which Robinsons was it?
It was Bill's, yeah.
What would it
Bill's.
be, like great grandparents?
Well, it's Buren's parents.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay. John and Ella.
yeah. And my Papa Stiles was a minister, so he was the first moderator.
So that was Mildred's dad.
That's my mother's daddy, right? And he was a traveling preacher. He pastored at several churches at one time. And so over here they began holding Sunday school and preaching services every fourth Saturday and Sunday in the school building.
Fourth Saturday and Sunday.
Fourth Saturday and Sunday. So the next step logically was they began to think we need a building. So they agreed that right here on this hill was the perfect spot. And so I just felt like this is a chosen place. I just feel like it's a chosen place. And it's dear to me because it was Mother and Daddy's property. So I've always loved that. And so I think after all that, you can see why this church is in my blood. It's in my DNA. I'm saturated with it. And let me see what I was
Diane, just backtracking a little bit, when you talked about your mom and dad building the house in the barn, some people here may not know, or some people watching, that it's just right next door here.
Yeah.
That barn that I saw in the picture, is that the same barn?
Yeah, it was always the same barn.
Is
The
that
house
the barn
was,
still there?
yeah, the house was just 3 rooms, and then later when Daphne and Philip were, before I was born, they added another 3 rooms. So, but the house was just 3 rooms to begin with, and it's the same house that it is now. Okay, I'm gonna jump ahead. Electricity came to Buncombe in 1940, and this was good news, you can imagine, because now they had electric lighting, they had refrigerators, they had electric stoves, they had well pumps, things that are important to a man, well pumps and gas pumps. Daddy had already been in the store business for a while, so that was really of interest to him. But back at the Johnson house, Daphne was born in August of 29, and if you ever knew her, she was a force of nature from day one. She was smart and she was fun and just a cool person. 3 years later, Lance was born in August of 1932, and what could be happier news than a son? And it was never a secret, and we always told Mother, we always knew he was her favorite, and there was just no question about it, and rightfully so, because he's amazing. He's amazing. I still have Lance. He's in Oregon. He's 93, going to be 94 in August, and he still does the music at his church and runs the sound system, and God's just got his hands all over him. Okay, so I don't know if I skipped about the store. I don't think I did. Okay, so now as was usual of the time, Daphne and Lance were born at home. They were midwives, but my Papa Stiles had a brother who was a doctor, Oscar, and he was there both times. But I came later. They were about to have their 13th and 16th birthday when I was born. And I was born in the hospital in Bremen. And Mother wrote this, and I'm just going to read it because I can't say it like she said it. It's been a long day. Mona Diane finally arrived at 1:30 a.m. on May the 8th, 1945. They let me hold her just a few minutes before whisking her off to the nursery, and I fell sound asleep. But about 5 or 5:30 it was still dark, I was awakened with horns blowing, everybody talking way too loud to be in a hospital. And I could hear a radio playing. I couldn't wrap my head around what was going on. Perhaps I had died. And then she says, finally, someone came in to check on me and told me the war is over. Germany has surrendered. So I was born on May 8th, 1945, and that was VE Day. And you mentioned today, Jessica mentioned today about when the war ended in Japan, and that was the same year, I think. I think it was the same year. So, as I said, Daphne and Lance were older, so you can imagine I was probably the center of attention. Lorraine always likes to tell that my Uncle Hoyd, which was Daddy's brother, said when I was born, well, she'll never walk. And she'll never have to walk. And it was a double blessing. I had Mother and Daddy, and they were not young parents. Mother was 36, Daddy was 40. And then I had these teenage siblings who were like siblings plus. They were almost another set of parents, but without the discipline and the rules and stuff. Okay, Daphne was married in 1949, and that was just before my 4th birthday. And they moved immediately to Elkin, North Carolina. That was Philip's hometown. And they were just in the Blue Ridge Mountains. I can't remember the wedding. I can't remember Daphne without Philip. And, but one of the earliest things that I can actually say, yes, I remember that happening, was the summer after they married in February. They came to visit and took me home with them. And I was 4 by now. And I don't know if it was on the way and we drove through the mountains, the Blue Ridge Mountains, or if we just made a trip. They lived right in the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains. But I remember so much about seeing those mountains for the first time. They brought me a little wooden chair, and I kept it for years and years and years. And that's just a clear memory. But the earliest thing that I can just about remember. Mom and Daddy, of course, came up and collected me, I guess, a week later. Okay, Daddy was farming all this time and had the store. The first store was a wooden store, and it was built facing the house, and the road ran between the house and the store. Not out here, but directly in front of the house and before the store, if that makes sense. So when I was little, Mother worked at the lunchroom in Buncombe, and some days when she could keep me confined, she carried me to work with her. And after, I guess maybe I was walking or whatever, I stayed with Daddy at the store. Papa Johnson stayed a lot, watched the store a lot so that Daddy could farm. So a lot of my growing up years were with my papa and my daddy. Okay, another improvement. I was going to read a little of this. I don't know if I need to or not. I probably don't have time. Another big deal was in 1953. I put together some stuff for the Historical Society, and I'm just kind of trying to glean from that. 1953 is when the road out here was paved from Tallapoosa to Bowden. Before that it was dirt. And I think that was a big deal to get that done. The rocks that were scraped off of that road is where the store, Daddy's store now, came from. He went to the people and said, can I have these? And they said, if you can get them out of the ditches and haul them off, you can have them. So that's where the rock store building started.
Diane, second, all I remember is the rock store. What year?
I think it must have been soon after 53, because that's when Mother said the road was paved, and that's when the rocks were overturned. And that's when he thought, I might could use these if I can get them. And they said, if you can haul them off, you can have them. So I think it was probably just that next year. Okay, here I say, Daddy was ready to build a new store. Those pretty new rocks were a real possibility. So he asked, and he was given permission. And a few months later, the rock store was built. So I guess that's when it was.
Did he build it?
He did, and Cliff Patterson, I don't know, nobody knows that name. Jerry might remember that name.
Diane, right there, that picture, the old store.
Yeah, the old store was a wooden structure.
Okay, and for everybody to know, that's Antioch Church back behind it.
Oh, yeah.
You'll see it when it comes back. But now, that building was on this side of the shallow road.
The road was between the house and the store. And then when they
the shallow road further that way?
It was right in front of the house, between the store and the house.
Okay, but you said right in front of the store, but was the store,
The
the
store
rock
was in,
store
the store
now?
was in basically the same place it's sitting now. It was just turned toward the house.
Okay,
And the road ran between those. Then when they did this road, they changed the road.
okay, they moved
And
to where
it
it
came
is now.
this way. Don't ask me why they did that, but they did that. So Daddy built the new rock store, and I'm not gonna talk about what he had in there because it takes too long, but it was a fun upgrade because he could keep, he had a big red Coke box, and he had a chest for ice cream, and, you know, all the fun things for the kids. And there was still the ever-present kerosene pump on the front porch, motor oil on the front porch, and 2 new gas pumps. Okay. I did want to read this. A large part of Daddy's business was credit. And he did all his calculations with pencil and paper, and he was so good, and he was so fast. And he would keep a running tally and a ledger, and people paid at the end of the week, at the end of the month, whenever they could or not. And there wasn't a real closing time. He was open till dark, and if anybody needed him to go back, you know, he went back. It's kind of become a landmark, the rock store. Everybody knows where the rock store is. So, and at the store, I just talk a lot about the store because that was almost like the other room of my house, because I was there all the time. It was more than a store. It was a gathering place for locals. The ladies came to shop, but the men came to hang out. It was a place for good conversation, tell-telling, sawmill dinners, Friday night basketball games replayed, and what's going on with the Braves. And there were serious Bible discussions, spirited political debates were often heard, but they always ended respectfully. He never tolerated foolishness. That was an unspoken but understood code of ethics. In the wintertime, there was always a checker game going on. In the summertime, there was always horseshoes. And you could hear them, and the end ended at dark. And that's the atmosphere that I grew up in. That's the reason I'm talking about it so much, is because that was my environment, you know? Okay, I'm just going to talk about a few odds and ends that stick in my mind. I'm just talking about the things I remember. Some of the things that stick in my mind. Television. I don't remember not having one, but I remember when it was new. So I guess you don't miss what you don't have. And I definitely remember when we got a telephone. I think maybe I was 7 when we got a TV. I think the telephone was later. My Papa and Grandma Johnson always had a telephone. It was on the wall in the kitchen. It was a big black. I think it maybe had a receiver. I don't think we had to talk. I think it probably, I don't know. But it was a big deal because with Daphne in North Carolina, and Lance had joined the Navy by now. He joined the Navy when I was 7. So he was in California, and, you know, you got to have a way, plus for emergency. So it was not infrequent that we had to make a trip to Kansas just to use the telephone. When we got our phone, I think I was maybe 10 or 12, and it was a eye-opening, world-changing thing. We learned really quickly. Carolyn Wright, the Wrights, and I were on the same party line, and like Patsy Blackman and Becky Self and Judy Ellis were on a different party line. But if I called Patsy, then everybody else could pick up. And you could have 5 or 6 people talking. And, I mean, you know, we'd have to say, I'm calling, so you pick up in 5 minutes, you know. But it was fun. Okay, I already mentioned I stayed with Dad and Papa a lot. Mother worked at Hubbard's. After I was like, she worked at the lunchroom. Then she worked at Hubbard's after I was older and into my first school years. So again, I was just at the store. Okay, everybody knows where Kent Williams lives, on the Eccles property. Over close to your house, Stephanie.
Yes,
Your
he's
house.
our neighbor.
Okay,
Yeah.
that field that's now got cattle in it was a landing strip. And I guess it was built during World War II, because it was I guess they had smaller planes, and it was a training field for taking off and landing. I guess so that they, you don't think they'd been big enough to land an airplane, but they were smaller, and I guess it was just, so they would use it on the weekends. This is a Daphne story. This was her era. And weekends, there were just young guys all over there, and that was just she hung out with the Eccles girls and the Williams girls, and that was just a fun thing to her. But that was just an interesting thing that we had a little airstrip in Buncombe. Another thing, where the Hampton's house is right now, where Daphne's house is, there was a beacon light. And again, I think probably it was built either pre-World War II or at the beginning, I don't know. But it was there. It was there when Daphne and Lance were kids. And it was not a lighthouse, it was a metal structure. And the light went around and around and around, and it was on a timer. I don't know how Daddy would talk about it. It was run by gas. I don't know. But he was the overseer of that. Now, he didn't have to turn it on and off. It wasn't his job to do that, but he just kind of maintained it, and he had to go periodically and clean it, and I don't know how he had to do it. I wasn't allowed to climb it. I know that Lance did often, I think, but that was just kind of another cool thing. And that's another...
There's a picture that'll pop up.
There is. It's just a skinny metal thing, but it was really tall. It was taller than the trees. It was really tall. And I think it was put there because this is a high altitude, and it was just a landmark for the planes to know. I don't know exactly.
It was a guide light.
Yeah, it was a guide light.
You come from
Right,
the west.
because we were on a high point. And another thing that I remember all my life, our bedrooms were on the back side of the house, which faced the light. And all my life, at night, that light would go across my ceiling. And it wasn't like in your face because the light was way up here, so it was just a glow, just a soft glow from the beacon light.
Wow, so you remember that.
Oh, yeah, that is just...
How long did they keep it going?
Well, it was there now. Well, it was all through my, way past World War II, because it was all through my early childhood. I want to say maybe it was dismantled or stopped. Maybe I was 12. So all through my little...
Up to around 57 or something.
Maybe. You'd have to look at Mother's book. I don't know. But that's just another really clear thing that I remember.
I remember either Daphne or Clara Williams or somebody who was at Eccles telling me the story about a plane crashing over there, crash landing over there.
Well, I'm not surprised because it wasn't. You know how long air at the airports, how long the landing strips are, and I know the planes were smaller.
But they told me about one of them was a British pilot, and they were always trying to have a romance with and they went up and bought high octane fuel from the gas station up there.
Oh yeah.
To try to get it back up and going.
Well, if Daphne were here, we could ask her, because I think that was a hangout on the weekends for they'd go over and just watching. And like I said, there were a lot of young army guys, and
Daddy's told me stories about that.
Did he?
And I'm not sure about this, but the flat area, like right in front of Dennis's house now, on our side.
I think that was part of it.
Yeah, I think it came from the pasture, kind of,
Right.
on the edge
And
of
I'm
our
sure
property.
that it was longer than
Yeah.
we think about his pasture being now, but it was still short to think about landing a plane on.
Right.
So. Okay, I went to school in Buncombe. I started in a little two-room house behind the main house, the main school building, and then there was this old, long, white wooden structure, and it went through high school. So I was there, I think, probably 3rd and 4th grade. And then by the time I was 5th and 6th grade is when they built the brick building. Now, some of you remember the brick building being down there. That was when the schools consolidated, and that's when we got the new brick building in Buncombe. And I was in 5th grade. We had 2 rooms in a class, so it was 5th and 6th
The white
grade.
building you were in, was it in the same location?
Yeah, it was in the same, set almost the same place. There was a little 2-room house behind it. That was 1st and 2nd grade. And the lunchroom was down here, and I think it was an old converted army barracks.
It
Mother
was,
used to talk about.
it was on the side of the road.
Right, on the side of the old dirt road.
Right.
Used to be a dirt road that goes to Mary Thomas's.
Yeah.
Right.
That's where the school, the lunchroom was. And then there was playground equipment in the front yard, and the ball fields were in the back.
But
I remember every detail about it, but about both buildings. I wish I could make y'all see it, but I can't. Of course, church was always just here, and we were just always here. And if there was something going on, we were here. Daddy was a young deacon here. Mother was the first pianist. Like I said, they were charter members. It was just, we were just always here, and that was our main outlet for it. Even by the time I was born, it was still. We were a one-car family, and it was still just, you know, we didn't go off and do stuff. You did stuff that was school-related or church-related or family-related. That was pretty much it. But there was a lot of stuff going on. As a teenager, I remember, have I skipped? I hope I haven't skipped. I know, I think it's later. Skating rinks were a big deal. We had the theater in Tallapoosa, and the theater in Tallapoosa, obviously they got power in Tallapoosa way before we did here, because Mother always talked about they went to the movies a lot as younger couples, and when Daphne and Lance were home. But we still had the theater. We had a theater in Bremen. We had a theater in Carrollton. We had a drive-in in Carrollton. We had a drive-in in Tallapoosa. Now, drive-ins are fun, and that was there, I think, till I was probably a mid-teenager, mid-teens.
Drive-in
The
theater?
drive-in theater
it was out on 78.
on Highway 78, where the radio station is. Yeah, where the radio station is. And it was there all through my childhood and dating years. And like I said, I think we started going to Carrollton, so I think they must have closed the one in Tallapoosa earlier than that. Concerts is a big deal for kids growing up these days. My first concert probably was an all-night quartet singing. And I remember doing this, and this was just something Mother loved to do, and Daphne loved to do. And when she was here, and it was, you know how we love the inspirations and everything. Well, there was just all these famous quartets. And it was at the Atlanta Municipal Auditorium. Now, that building's still there, but it's part of Georgia State, I think. Mother always loved the Fox. The Fox has always been there, and it was always just movies at that point in time that I knew anything about. But we went often. Daddy was very familiar with driving in Atlanta. He would gather back early. He would gather things in the community, and eggs and chickens and, you know, other things that people grow, and take them to the farmer's market and sell them. And then he would buy things that he couldn't get, and he'd sell them in the store. So he was comfortable. Plus, Mother had two sisters who lived in Atlanta. So at that point in time, when things were less complicated, so, you know, they would go to ball games, and they would go do this and that and this and that. Another big deal was Mother was a big shopper. I am not. And we would get on a Greyhound bus in Tallapoosa and go to Atlanta. And the bus station was walking distance from Rich's and Davidson's, and we'd shop and spend the night with her sister and come home, and that was another fun thing. Another big deal, when I was 15, we had the Tallapoosa Centennial. That was kind of big all over the county. In 1965, at the Fulton County Stadium, I saw the Beatles. That was fun. Okay, I went to West Harrison for high school. Never dreaded school. I had so many good friends. We took all our friends from Buncombe, but then we had all these new friends from Waco and Stedman and Buchanan that we never got to know. So I cheered all through high school. That was probably one of my most fun things. It was a safe environment. We had great teachers, and they watched over us. Even though it was high school, it was a safe. You didn't have to worry. You didn't have to worry. Then I went to West Georgia in the fall. My mother really wanted me to stay on campus. First of all, we only had one vehicle, and that pretty much determines where you're going to stay. And she just kind of wanted me to have that experience. You know, Mother was always forward thinking. And I loved dorm life, and I enjoyed my studies, and I loved that little bit of independence. That was my first, you know, when somebody didn't know what time you went to bed. And, but even there, and even then, we were watched over. We had, it's not like college today, we had a house mother. We had students who were hall monitors. We had curfew. We had restrictions. We had to sign out on a card. Like you're checking into work, you know? You get a card, you sign out where you're going. I don't think surely we had to do it for classes in the daytime, but if we were going anywhere else, we had to sign out, we had to sign in. You got restrictions. We had our rooms were inspected once a week. Can you imagine? I love chorus. That was another big deal for me at West Georgia, and I kind of got exposed to some different kind of music and different kind of singing, and I had to learn a lot of fast sight reading and yada, yada, yada. I got my, another big deal, President Kennedy was assassinated while, in that fall, my first fall at West Georgia, and that was, you know, it wasn't as traumatic as like 9/11, but it was, or war, but it was traumatic, and it's like, that kind of stuff sticks in your brain. Soon after that, I think, maybe the next spring, they moved in that chapel and dedicated it or named it the Kennedy Chapel, and I think it's still there. Robert Kennedy and his family came for the dedication. It was kind of a big deal, yeah.
Didn't know that.
I got my associate degree in business in May of 1965. My first job was at the office of Warrenville Clothing in Bremen. I rode to and from work with Janine. And what a fun part of my first working experience was that. I'm just going to stick this, I'm not going to have time to say everything. Speaking of Janine, my daddy had one sister. She was the firstborn. She was older than Daddy. She married Brad Phillips. I don't know that name. Brad Phillips. And they were already married and lived right where Viney and Brad always lived. And they were in Buncombe before Mother and Daddy were. They had 2 children, and Marvell was diabetic, and she died as a young woman. I think Mother said 28. So Brad had these 2 little children, but Brad was their brother-in-law, and just because Marvell died, that never changed in their mindset. So when he married Viney, well, she was like another sister-in-law. I mean, that was just the kind of thinking they were doing in that time. And of course, then they had HB and Janine. So, you know, they're family to me. And they never knew the difference. They never treated them different, and I didn't either. Okay, I talked about stepping into adulthood. This was another kind of a big life-changing thing. When I was 19, I spent the summer in California with Lance and Cindy and worked in his office, and they had these 2 little children, and to me, this was just, well, this is what I want. You know, this is what I want. And I had grown-up responsibilities. I had a job, and I was taking care of children, and I was away from Mother and Daddy. Even though I was with Lance, he treated me, I kind of think for the first time like a grown-up sister. I'd always been the baby sister, but I was kind of a grown-up sister now. And we did lots of fun things. Because of them living there, it's given us the opportunity to do a lot of traveling, see a lot of the country. We've made lots of trips, lots of road trips, lots of bus trips. You know, that was just the way we traveled, and it's been awful that they were so far away, but it's opened a lot of traveling opportunities, and it still does today. Okay, serious stuff. This is serious stuff. Okay, I keep talking about I was in this church, and I was just, all my life, I've been surrounded by a cloud of Christian witnesses, just all my life. And I think you just soak that up, you know? I think it becomes a part of you. If you're in that kind of atmosphere all the time. I was saved when I was 10. It was during the summer revival. Arcus Adams was the pastor. I know none of you know him. But he had this big, wild family. Makes me think of the McAdamses. I mean, I think they had probably 6 or 8 children. Big family. They lived at the Sanders house before you get to the Baggots. And they were always having stuff at their house. They would have ice cream suppers and game nights, and it would be like a family night. welcome to come. And his wife, he called her Mutt. And I guess because she was a pastor's wife and she had all those kids, she was laid back, but she was in charge. But she always, I don't know, it was just a really warm place to be, and we were always welcome to be there.
What did he do for a job?
He was somehow, wouldn't it somehow, I always thought it was something to do with an armory or the military or, I can't remember. It was in Anniston.
Bob Adams was that too.
Well, I think Arcus was somehow sort of in that same line of work. I don't know, I was too young to care what he did. I was baptized in the pond behind Homer Benfield's house with Carolyn and Joanne. We were all saved that summer. This is another funny thing I remember. Mother made me wear a bathing cap. Now, I don't know if I had been sick or if she was worried about the water or if she was trying to keep my hair dry because we did not have hair dryers.
I wondered what.
Yeah.
He was just up there.
Yeah, I had on a white bathing, and I remember that I had to wear it, and they didn't have to. And the things you remember. Yeah. Okay. Barry and I were married in this church on a cold, rainy Friday night in December 1969.
There it is.
Is it?
Your timing
Your
is
timing.
impeccable with these.
That was in Germany.
I had the wedding before that.
Okay, we were in high school together, and we were friends, but we never had any interest in each other. That came after college. I don't know why things work the way they do sometimes. The war in Vietnam was a big deal. We were right in the throes of it. All the young men were either joining or being drafted. Barry was drafted. That did not make him happy, but it was a good thing for him, and he was good at it. We started seeing each other just before he was drafted, and I guess you could say it was a wartime romance. I don't think of it as being like the movies, but it was a lot of long distance and a lot of letter writing, a lot of phone calls, and trying to get home as many weekends as you could, and cramming a lot of together time in short chunks, you know. He was smart, and he was chosen to go to officers candidate school. And he was commissioned as a second lieutenant. That was good for him. And we were very fortunate that he was stationed in Germany. He was charming, he was handsome, he was fun. So during that point in time, we fell in love. And the months between his graduation and going to Germany is when we made a plan to marry. So he went to Germany, and I'm here, and I have these little side stories. I just don't have time to tell them. We married. He was able to book a leave ahead of time so that we could plan a wedding around it, and that was in December. And he was here for about 3 weeks. So the reason we were married on a weird Friday night was because he was just here a few days, and then we wanted as much time. Plus, Christmas was coming, and so we were just trying to get it as quickly done as we could after he was here. Okay, I followed him 3 weeks after he returned. I couldn't go immediately because we didn't have a place to live, and they were just in the middle of a deployment. I adapted to military life. I liked it. I made lots of. I think you make a lot of fast friends because you're kind of in a little community of your own, and you're away from your family, and I think you just kind of start clinging to each other really quick. And you're all the same age, and so I adjusted. I loved being in Germany. We did as much traveling as we could. We had one car. We didn't have any money, and I was able to do a couple of bus tours with some of the other wives to like London and Belgium and a few places where we could afford to go. But I loved it, and I was only there though for 8 months, and then his whole battalion was deployed to Fort Riley, Kansas, and so that's where we were for the remainder of his time there. Okay, he was discharged in April of '69, and we moved back to Georgia. We both started working for Southwire, and that's about the time I learned a baby was on the way. And that would be Michael. He was born on December 31st, 1969, New Year's Eve. When he was 3 months old, we moved to Little Rock. We were there for about a year and a half. And Barry was traveling 2 to 3 to 4 days a week. And I had this new baby, and I just loved him so, and life was good. And we were not there very long. He was then transferred to Houston. And I loved Houston. It was an easy city to learn to me, and lots to do. And I loved it there, and I had 2 babies there. Shannon was born there in March of 72, and John just the following year, really quick, 14 and a half months later, 73. And so I'm busy and crazy, and things are hectic and wonderful, and we moved back to Georgia later that same year after John was born. Okay. Barry's work was unsettled after that for quite a few years, and but I was able to stay home with them when they were babies. It was, at that point in time, it was not, everything I could have made, I would have had to spend to daycare 3 babies. So I've always been thankful for that I was able to spend that time with them. So when John started kindergarten is when I started working. And we both worked for a while. And I was happy to be back in Georgia. I was happy to have my kids back with their grandparents, and I wanted to get them in this church, and I wanted them surrounded and just grow up just like I did. So we settled back in here really quickly. My children were all saved here. Well, Shannon was actually saved at the Daniels Crusade. I don't know if anybody remembers that. I think it was at the high school somewhere. And Michael was saved that same year here, and they were both baptized in Michael White's swimming pool over the road. And pastor then was Roscoe Hayes. John was saved a few years later on an Easter Sunday, and Don Butler was the pastor then. And he was baptized here, and it was brand new. Fellowship Hall was brand new. I don't know what year that was, but I just remember Preacher Hayes was here when we started building the Fellowship Hall. And I think Don must have come right after him.
It was probably 77 in that area, because
Probably.
we married in 76, and that's when the ladies told the men we've got to have a fellowship hall.
Well, John was born in 73, so maybe by the time that would have been 83 that he was. So maybe it wasn't brand new, but anyway.
But we didn't have the baptistry for a couple of years.
At first, yeah. Okay. My kids were always good. They were good babies. They were good little kids. I'm not bragging. They were just perfect children. They weren't perfect. I know they weren't. I know they weren't. But I'm telling you, like I remember it. Like I remember it. They were into everything. They were smart. They were good students. They had lots of friends. They had lots of friends at my house. They always preferred they'd come to my house than go somewhere. We had a lot of challenges in this year. We had a lot of challenges going on through these years, and my focus became, I had started work, and for a long time I was the only one working. My focus became trying to keep an even keel at home, to try to provide stability, to try to keep body and soul together, make the place they wanted to be. And you know those years, y'all know those years when you're trying to raise your kids and they're going from ball field to ball field and everything, and you want them to be, and that's where the fun is all that stuff. But you know, you still gotta do the work back here, and somebody's got to buy the cheerleading uniforms and the tennis rackets and the tennis shoes, and you know, the braces and the glasses and the prom dresses and all the stuff. You know, y'all know those years. You're running and your life's just and things were rocky, and I don't talk about this much. So if you know anything about it, then you're in my real inner circle. My focus became them and trying to, I don't want to say it was almost a time of pretense. That's not the right word, but it was a time of covering up and not telling everybody everything. And can y'all understand what I mean? Mm-hmm. And that went on for a few years. And when I look back, and when I think about it, it was hard and it was sad and it was awful. But then when I just casually think about it. Most of the time, the way I think about it is, I remember the good and the fun and the running and the carrying on and the kids that they were and how blessed I was. They were so resilient. I can't tell you through those years how resilient they were. They just, went with the, like we did. I think when things are going on, well, okay, in 1995, my marriage ended. And that was such a hard decision. And when I try to explain it to somebody, it's hard for me to explain it to you. I don't know. I think it was like, I don't know if I was scared or if I just wasn't brave enough or if I didn't feel like I had liberty to walk away. It's hard to, I think sometimes you get caught up in the stress of the day and the things you have to do that you just kind of put your head down and you just keep walking and you think, I'll deal with that later. It's hard for me to, I think my biggest drawback, and this may not be the right thing to say in church, but I wasn't sure I had scriptural liberty to be the one to walk away. I mean, let's face it, the scripture really only gives you one legitimate reason. We're going to talk to Paul about this one day. That was not our issue. We didn't have that one thing that says, yes, you've got freedom to walk away from this marriage. So it was hard. But it became necessary for our well-being. And I'm not going to talk about things just out of respect, but I think it's probably time y'all know. Like I said, I know you know, but it's not because I've told you. You just, you know. But it did become necessary, and I know we were in this church all the time, and God's hand was just over us. And when I look back, I just see it so clear. I saw it then, but I didn't see it like I did when I look back over it, and I think, how in the world? And His grace just poured over us all and protected us and helped us be resilient. And I like to think I was resilient. I like to think I was persistent and just being brave. I wasn't. I was just being stubborn and just dealing with my own hang-ups. My own. I had a hard time. It's hard to let go of a dream. It's hard to let go of your expectations. Even when you know you're not in the right place, it's still hard to leave it sometimes. It is. I said it wasn't going to cry, so
And were you working at the health department at that point?
okay, I think I talked about that. I've tried to line this up, and you can't line it up. Okay, before I get into that, now, I have these three amazing, smart, grounded, enjoying life adult children. And it's God's grace from day one. They're exceptional. They are perfect. I told y'all. And I'm thankful for them every day. Every day I just praise Jesus for them and I thank Him for them. And I have two wonderful in-law children. Michael married Susan Coffin and Shannon married John Otwell, and he really is perfect. There are three grandsons that I love and adore, Luke and Brock and Wallace. Oh gosh, Wallace. And they're just a source of joy for me every single day. Okay, I had a few different jobs. Oh, I've got to hurry so. But my main longest career was at the Polk County Health Department in Rockmart. And how in the world would I ever have gotten a job in Rockmart? It was just God's work through that, and I was put in the middle of a group of primarily Christian women supporting me, and that public health will open your eyes to things that a little country girl is not exposed to, situations and circumstances, and I learned, it became an area of service for me. I learned about accepting, and I think maybe I'm less judgmental than maybe I would have been. It was just a different our clients were. We had wonderful clients, don't get me wrong. We had some that preferred to come to the health department, that could have gone anywhere. But most were needing something. And I just found a new level of acceptance. I did. And how to maybe be hands-on a little bit. Music. I'm finally to the best part. Okay, y'all know that it's just a thread through my life, and from day one, if it wasn't Joe Rumore on the radio at the store, it was Mother doing something at the house. She taught piano all my life, at home and in the church, in the schools, public schools. I think she says I was on the piano bench with her at church when I was little, and it was just a constant, like this church. This church is a constant for me. My family is a constant for me. Music was a constant for me. And Daphne was a wonderful musician. She's so much better than the rest of us. She paid attention, and Lance and I just loved it and wanted to do it, but we weren't willing to pay the price, I guess. I was in singing schools all summer, all my life, always. All-day singings with Mother was just an every weekend occurrence. Even when I didn't want to, it still sticks with you. And it's always been such an important part of this church. Always, always. Mother and Regina Reese and Daphne and I have sung all our lives. Lance is a singer. I don't know. It's just been a common undercurrent, always there. I love every genre of music. There's not much that I don't love, and if I don't love it, I respect it and I can appreciate it. I talked about some of the people I listen to, but I won't bore y'all with that. I had a few opportunities outside church to do some music stuff, but my most cherished and most often outlet for music has been this place. I think you'll explode if you have something in you and you can't get it out, you don't have an outlet. That's where I kind of feel if I didn't have an outlet for my music, I think I would be miserable, I know. Y'all kind of know what it's been here. As soon as we got back and John was really little, pretty quickly I started trying to work with the kids a little bit, especially at Christmas time, more than anything else. Bible schools, that sort of thing, but primarily. And then the choir came later, and those are just two of my greatest joys. They're just what I love. I think I love it so, and I know y'all have heard me say, I love this song, I want y'all to love it too. I can't always make you love it, but I want you to. I want you to feel about it like I do. And but I think the primary thing it is for me is it's my biggest and most comfortable form of worship. I've never been, it's weird, I'm a cheerleader, and I've been one all my life, and I'm quick to clap and applaud, but I've never been really comfortable with just raising my hands in church and praise. I don't know. I think I wasn't exposed to it, maybe. It has never come natural to me, but if the music starts, I immediately am swaying, or I'm wanting to clap my hands, or I'm wanting to do something, and I think directing the choir, I do it almost without thinking, and I just think it's just become an expression for me. That's why I love for the kids in the Christmas program to get to have actions to the stuff. I think it's another level of expression, I do. I think it's good for them to have a way to get it out, and plus I think it's more entertaining, but the main thing, I just think it's good for them to, and I think the working in the Christmas stuff, I have coerced so many people when I think back. I've tried not to twist arms, but I know, and I try not to pressure, but I know I probably do. But I still think it's a good memory-making, friend bonding kind of little time, but I think I mainly do it for me. I think I mainly do it for me, just because I love it. So, but I do think it's good for the kids. I think it's what we can kind of give back to the church a little bit. I think it serves its purpose. I think the choir is a wonderful thing. It's kind of in a slump right now, so y'all need to help me pray about it. I kind of feel heavy about it, just because we're kind of, people are not coming as much as I want them to, but, you know. Okay, I'm going to tell you some of the things I believe, and then I'm going to be through. I believe in forgiveness. I believe in Jesus Christ and his eternal, always salvation through faith in him. I believe in the spirit of discernment. I believe God prompts us in situations. I believe that. I think we just have to listen for it sometimes. I believe in faithfulness. I believe in sticking to something to work it out if you can. I think to God, to my family, to friends, to this church, I just think the least thing, I can't do much, but I can show up, you know, I can show up. And I think that's important, just to show up sometimes, just to stay with it. I believe in sticking to a commitment, but I've learned that sometimes you have to walk away. And that's if it's for your well-being or if it's just the right thing to do. Sometimes the right thing is just to walk away. I believe in compromise. I believe in protecting their confidence. I believe in community. I believe in sisterhood. Do y'all? I love you guys. I love you better than anything, but I believe there's a special feeling with women sometimes. Maybe it's because I've been on my own all these last years that my sisters in Christ have become, you know, maybe more. I believe that the ocean and the mountains are good for the soul, and I believe that music is just the lifeblood. You know, I just believe. Okay, I'm going to do this, and I may not can do it. This little thing over here, the choir gave me that for Christmas, and you know, when you're speaking to your phone, you know how the sound waves do. Well, that's what that is. I adopted kind of as my mantra a song by ABBA. Now, y'all may think you don't know who ABBA is. They were a band in the 80s. But if you know Mamma Mia, or if you know Dancing Queen, you know ABBA. And this was a song from the 80s, and it just says what I feel. I have to have a drink of water. First, it's about being thankful. I'm first just thankful to my mom and Daphne and everybody around here who put music into my life so much, who just taught me to love it. I'm thankful to this church for being my outlet for what's in me as far as music is concerned. And I'm just thankful for God for all of it, for sowing that love in me, for giving me a tiny bit of talent, for putting me here, for all of it, you know. Okay, I've talked too much. I don't know if I can sing this or not. This is an ABBA song. So I may just be having to say the words. Okay. Mother said I loved to dance before I could walk. She said I was singing even before I could talk. And I've often wondered, how did it all start? Who found out that nothing can capture a heart like a melody can? Well, whoever it was, I'm a fan. So I say thank you for the music, the songs I'm singing. Thanks for all the joy they're bringing. Who can live without it? I ask in honesty. What would life be without a song or a dance? What are we? So I say thank you for the music, for giving it to me. I've been so lucky. I am a girl who has a song. I want to sing it out to everybody. What a joy, what a chance, what a life. Thank you for the music, the songs we're singing. So I say thank you for the music, for giving it to me. Thank you for the music, for giving it to me. I'm sorry, that was way too long. I'm so sorry.
Oh, so great.
Great.
It's great.
And
So
Diane,
awesome.
can I just say,
You can just say personally that, I know I didn't grow up in this church, but I feel like I've been in prayer. And, but you've always been amazing. Especially since my mom passed. You're my mother. You're Molly's grandmother. And I know you feel that role for so many in that church, but it's your mom. And I just thank you.
well, that's an honor that you feel that way, and I feel exactly the same way about so many people in this church. I mean, I look at you, and you know, we're always talking about the church family, and that's a wonderful term, but it's almost not enough. You know, it's almost not enough. You actually almost, I just look at you, and you're just almost mine. That's just the way I feel, and. Oh, what a blessing is that to get to be in that kind of atmosphere. There's just nothing better, nothing sweeter than being with like-minded people. I just treasure you all. Just love you so much. Sam, I love you.
Say, I broke into Diane's house before.
She lived next door to me for a little while.
I was gonna say, the kids were always at your house because you had a lined basketball court.
I did.
My mom would be like, no, you're not going back over there. But even back in the day, Diane was locking herself out of the house. And so the kids were able to get
Put you through the basement window.
the basement window to let her in her house.
Yeah.
Kid.
Yeah, my house was always busy. God bless them. I don't know if I said that. When I talk about God's blessings and how he was just so ever present. I feel like we were up here and life was good and things was fun and the kids were wonderful and everything was okay. But under here, there was this current of eggshells or unsettled. And how we were able to achieve this with this going on, that's God's grace. That's God's grace. That's not anything I did. That's not anything. That's all it is. That's the only explanation for it. And I talked about that part way too much, and I don't like to talk about it. But gosh, it was such a big chunk of my life, you know. It wasn't the best part. Well, it was the best part. At the same time, it was the best part because that was when my kids were, you know, so fun. They've always been so fun. We've had our little challenges, but God's been so good. He's been so good to me. He just is so good to me every day. I love you, Kelly. Okay, I'm finished, Johnny.
Thank you, Diane.
Oh. No need for applause. I just thank you for, I dreaded this. I just dreaded kind of getting my thoughts together. You know, I don't dread talking to you. I love talking to you.
I'm glad that, I'm not the only one that's long-winded.
I knew, you know, at first I thought, I don't have anything to say. But then when I started trying to put it down, I thought, oh, I can't say all this, so I'm sorry.
Great job. If you have it to say, I'm a firm believer, it's for somebody. And, don't ever think that you said too much, because to me, you said just enough.
Well,
God,
I appreciate you listening.
God uses everything that we say when we say it for Him.
I believe in that.
Some people might not hear it because they're ready to go, but
Right.
when God instructs us to do something,
appreciate you being patient with me and gentle with me. And
Diane, you are loved.
well, darn, thank you. I know that I am.
We so
I know that I am.
appreciate and value you. And you're the mother to so many of us in this
Well,
church. I have my biological mother. You're my church mom.
Well, you're precious to say that. If
I mean, I just feel
if
like
that's
right
the
now-
truth, that would just nothing would bring me. That's just the greatest honor anybody could ever say to me is, you know.
But that's
And I
how
feel
much
the same way about you.
Y'all joking kid, but I like the fact that you don't take no for an answer.
I don't mean to. I try to be like Daddy. And I know I'm some like Mother, but I do think I'm more like Daddy. Don't you? Don't you?
Probably, yeah. Daphne was more your mother.
Like Mother.
She was your mother on steroids.
Yeah, she was a sight. And if you didn't know her, I'm sorry, and I wish that you could have known her when she was at her very best before she got sick. And Daddy always said she was a firecracker, just stand back and hold on, And I didn't talk enough about Lance. He's just a wonder of nature. He is still so sharp and so good and so faithful and so all the good things, He still watches over me, From Oregon, he watches over me. He always wants to know how are things, and he really means it. He's not just... One time, this is kind of sad. I don't know, Lorraine, while we were talking about this, but when Carlton died, Lorraine said, I think he's the last person to remember the day I was born. That's real sobering to think about, isn't it? And this week my brain's been going like this because of this. And I was thinking, well, I have Lance and Lorraine that remember when I was born. And I don't know that there's anybody else. All my older cousins, and I had a zillion, and they were precious and wonderful, but the ones who would remember are gone. And I've lost all my aunts and uncles, and, that's a sobering thing to think about. But, everybody doesn't get to get old. And so I can't resent it. I can't worry about what's happening. Just kind of have to hold on and keep walking, because everybody doesn't get to get here. But I just have always remembered Lorraine saying that when Carlton passed away. And at the time I thought, that's a strange thing to say. But I've thought about it a lot. And so.
I thought about Daddy this morning when Gary talked about the day that Carolyn was born. That was the day that Mother and Daddy married. And Daddy always tell her, I'll always remember when you were born, Carolyn, because that's the day that Myrtle and I married.
Well, I didn't, when I was born, Daphne was 16 and she had not met Philip, but Philip always loved to tell me, and he'd tell me almost every birthday, I remember the day you were born. And I thought, you didn't know me the day I was born, but he was in Germany. And he remembers the day the war ended, and he was always quick to tell me, I remember the day you were born. It's like Buren saying, we were born on the same day. And I'd say, we were not. We had the same birthday, but we were not born on the same day.
Lance and Bea were born on the same day.
Who?
Lance and Beatrice.
Yes, they were. They were twins, the very same day.
Between the two homes.
Yeah.
Checking out.
Yeah, Mother always loved that. She always kind of wanted to claim B because of that. But that was okay. We claim those that are dear to us, not because they're our birth people. They're just our chosen people. Well, thank y'all so much. It wasn't as bad as I was afraid it was going to be.